we are live. How are you, Therese?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a nice sunny day. It's starting to feel like summer where I am. I'm in Washington State, so it's like finally getting some sunshine and,
I
and
know.
happiness with it.
Oh my gosh, it's been so hot here this week, which is great, but it's also been very windy and dry, and we could use some rain. So if you all could do a little rain dance and send some moisture and some rain to, Alberta, Canada, we could really use it.
You can have all of Washington's, right? We've got plenty, so have some.
Taking it in. Well, I'm really excited for today's chat around Ascension.
Yes, my favorite topic.
Oh my gosh, yes. So why don't we dive right in? I'd love for you to share, obviously this is a very broad topic and we don't have years to talk about it today. So we're going to kind of summarize. I want you to share with me, what is Ascension first off?
Right. So Ascension basically is talking about a raising up of frequency, and Ascension works in cycles. So it's like the way that my team shows me to picture it is picture a big circle. And right now, what we're coming out of the bottom of the circle. So we've been in the circle is broken into a golden age at the very top, then followed by the silver age, the bronze age, and the iron age, also known as like the dark age, right? So we're coming out of a dark age and we're moving up into a golden age. And what this really has to do with is it has to do with an increase in consciousness. When we move into a golden age, we're at the height of a consciousness evolution. And in that evolution, it's like all knowledge is known. All of our extrasensory abilities are fully available. This is when we would be at the peak of humanity. But why this ascension is different is because it's the first time that the earth will be changing frequencies and taking humanity with it. So back in, I believe it was like really 2012 when the Mayan calendar ended, was the official shift of the earth moving from that third density state, third density being like connected to the level of consciousness that we're all kind of familiar with, that third density. So when I'm talking density, I'm talking about the rate at which consciousness vibrates. And third is a really interesting one because it's a mix of a very heavy, dense kind of matter and also the awakening of higher levels of consciousness. So we saw things come forward, like ancient practices like yoga comes forward in third density. It started to come forward. But notice that that's a practice that's both very physical and spiritual, mental practice, right? As we're climbing up in frequency, things change. We don't need to do all of that stuff to attain the levels of consciousness that we needed to do back in third density. So really quick, back in 2012, I believe was the official Earth shifted into fourth density, and she's moving into fifth, which is the one that we're all kind of waiting for this other shift. But with that, she was able to support humanity with levels of consciousness of 3D and fourth density, which is where we're at now. And you can tell where consciousness is at because we're seeing a lot of polarizing. Fourth density is sort of a detox vibration where you really kind of get clear about the light and the dark, truth and fiction and things like that get really in third density, they were sort of merged together and it was hard to see it. Now in fourth density, it's like, no, here's the difference, right? We can see that difference. So what's unique about this time period and why people talk about ascension so much is that it's never been attempted to shift a planet with humanity on it. In the past, when the planet was shifting, humanity would be wiped out, or there would appear to be a wipeout or a reset where there'd be civilizations would be built up. Like, for example, Atlantis, right, was supposedly a very advanced civilization. It gets wiped out and humanity starts over. So what makes this one different is that instead of a cataclysmic reset where it appears that humanity is kind of wiped out and there's few that remain and then they rebuild again, this time there is a taking humanity with us, those who are prepared to shift. And this is where it gets woo-woo for some people, because part of this prophecy is that the earth kind of separates into two. And there's a third density earth that exists, and then there's a higher fifth density earth. And where we go to, if you are ascending with that planet, you go to the higher density planet. And now this isn't just mythology. This has been tracked throughout many religions, many ancient religions, going all the way back to like Zoroastrianism, which was, before the oh gosh, what's the word I'm looking for? Before the religions like Judaism and, Christianity. Before that, there's Zoroastrianism, and they even talk about it. The Hindus talk about it. The Bible talks about it. At the Quran, the Torah, they all have these stories about this coming shift. And we just happen to be the humans who are here for it. We were hand selected to be here at this time because we had the right combination of qualities, let's say, to manage this big shift. So hopefully, I know this is a really basic description and a really minimalist understanding, but hopefully it kind of paints a picture of what we're talking about when we talk about ascension.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. And this is the thing, is if you want to learn more and we want to get more specific into one focus, leave questions and comments below, and we will totally take that into account for future episodes. So how does ascension impact us? Like, I can share my experiences. Like, I'm not an expert on it, but what do you notice?
So one of the things that I was told from my own spirit team back in 2014 that is going to assist humanity in moving, literally frequency jumping to another planet, is that we're actually changing on a biological level. We are shifting very much so at the core of our being. It has to do with our DNA. Our DNA, it's noted that DNA is like two-stranded, but many spiritual texts talk about us having up to 12 strands. And notice how when scientists talk about DNA, they used to talk about junk DNA, kind of saying there was a bunch of like DNA that did nothing. That DNA does do something. It just wasn't being utilized at the time. So part of it is there's a literal DNA shift that's happening. And the other part is that we're shifting the molecular structure of our bodies, and it's happening very slowly, but it is happening right now. And that is from a carbon-based molecular structure to a crystalline plasma base. And the reason why is because plasma is very highly conductive, very electromagnetic, and it holds a lot more light, can hold a lot more light. And as it does so, it literally changes us. And one of the things I note before we get into it, because I know a lot of people who watch your channel will understand this, we've held more weight on our body because of this shift. And so some of the fat that we're experiencing is actually spiritually put there on purpose as a form of protection. And Amber talks about protection a lot. So there is, other types of protection going on, but one is a spiritual protection because fat mimics plasma. It's the closest mimic we have to plasma. Fat can hold the same amount of water and electrical charge as plasma can. And so it actually serves us in this changeover that's incrementally happening to us.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. It's a really good description. And of course, it can have this whole ascension can have many impacts on the body. And we have been experiencing something called ascension symptoms, which a lot of you could be as well and maybe not be able to pinpoint it. So should we maybe share some of the experiences that we've been having?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about what ascension symptoms are, and then let's talk about how you can experience it. So ascension symptoms are really like, as this molecular change is happening in us and as our frequency is raising due to our consciousness, we're having to shed and let go of any heavy or dense vibrations, things that are not a match, or it's almost like, imagine a hot air balloon with all those sandbag weights. You have to cut the weights off so that you can go higher in energy. And so ascension symptoms aren't really from ascension so much as it is the detox of lower vibrations.
Right. Right. Yeah. And I love that, the detox of lower vibrations, right? And the body is purging, releasing, letting things go.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, tell me about what you've been going through and I'll share with you some of mine.
And there's all kinds of symptoms. And of course, please, if you get symptoms, don't just assume they're ascension symptoms. Obviously check in with your healthcare practitioners. If there's something really funky going on, take the proactive steps to look at, investigate, rule out that there is nothing truly going on in the body that needs attention, right? I think that that's really important disclaimer, to not just go, oh, like, I have this horrible pain in the right side of my abdomen. It's probably an ascension symptom. I'm not going to do anything, but it's like your appendix rupturing. Like, don't ignore symptoms, right?
Right.
So disclaimer.
Yeah.
So for me, they started really in the beginning of 2020 that I noticed. And I noticed that when, I'd start getting a lower backache, and I never get lower backaches. And then the next day, literally, my body would release everything like a bowel cleanse, but I'd have no stomach pain, no discomfort. It was just like everything, like a colonic, just everything coming out. TMI, but we're going to talk about this because I think this is really important for people to know in case you've experienced any of this as well. And I didn't feel unwell at all. And so this is the cellular debris releasing, this lower vibration, the stuff releasing. And what I noticed was this pattern with the Schumann resonance, and maybe you can touch on that right away, but essentially, looking at the graph for the Schumann resonance, when there's a lot of 5D high vibration light coming onto the planet, the day before that occurred, I'd get the lower backache. And then the day that it was really high vibe white looking is when this release would happen. So that's the first thing. And then it was like headaches, being wide awake in the middle of the night with so much energy, not able to sleep. That's another one. And then come this fall, I had a 3-week period where I was so nauseous. I couldn't eat any fat. I was eating so much fruit. My body's just like, give me fruit, give me fruit, give me fruit. And of course I took the steps. I'm like, okay, this has been going on for 3 weeks. I'm going to go get an ultrasound, make sure like my gallbladder and everything's fine. I'm going to get blood work too. Just intuitively, I felt like it was Ascension, but I just wanted to be sure, right? Because it was not fun to experience that for 3 weeks. And of course, everything came back fine. My gallbladder and liver and all digestive organs are fine. The blood work was fine. And I just I know that this is Ascension because as I started to incorporate more fruit, I could cut out like half my supplements. These upgrades are occurring, and that's part of the proof, in my opinion. And what's interesting, and we'll have to do more research on this, but my gallbladder meridian was being heavily impacted by the Ascension during that time. Because if you're having nausea, heartburn, you get nauseous after you're eating fat, you're getting this upper, right quadrant pain or ache, like that's all tied to your gallbladder meridian. And so it was just so interesting for me, for whatever the reason, like I'm processing and releasing a lot through that meridian. So those are some of the experiences that I have had that have been very interesting, to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and these can go on for years, by the way. Some of us, for example, my Ascension symptoms really started in 2008, and it started with things that were outside of me. It was more of a consciousness thing, but what would happen is that every single time I'd look at a clock, it would be 111, 222, 333, 444 every single time, to the point where I was making jokes about it because it wasn't even like a plan. It was just every single time. And I started noticing that I knew I was calibrating at the time. I didn't know what for. I just knew there's some kind of calibration going on. And then the next thing that really started showing up in my life is food sensitivity was off the chart. Things that I could handle for years with zero problems were suddenly could not go through my system. Dairy was one of them. Dairy was just anytime I'd have it, 20 minutes later, I'd be in intense pain. And I would also go to the hospital, I'd go to the ER. And at the time I was pregnant. And so I was really like, oh my God, what's happening? And, they put the little strap, monitor the baby's doing good. They're like, there's nothing, we can't figure it out. And it wasn't until I saw an iridologist by synchronicity. I wasn't seeking one. I found one. One found me. And she looked at my eye and she's like, oh my God, you can't have dairy. You're this is all. And as soon as I stopped eating dairy, the pain went away, which was fantastic. And it ended up becoming a lifestyle shift, which I'm very happy for. But after that was the vertigo. The vertigo was super intense. This is a very common one, and it usually shows when you're getting vertigo. And again, you still need to get it checked because it could be other things. But when you're having it, no other, there's no symptoms, nothing that's trackable. What this shows is like a leap in consciousness is happening. And it's almost like the world is tilting, even though you're standing still. It's really crazy when your frequency starts doing these jumps. Heart palpitations as well. These are and they're scary symptoms to get. You get them and you're like, what's wrong? Why is this happening? And they can be really intense. I used to, in fact, it was in 2000, I think 18, we had some significant jumps happen in energy. And I was literally having regular experiences where I was astrally projecting out of my body, which is the weirdest thing. So I'd be sitting there like cutting vegetables at the kitchen counter. And then all of a sudden I would feel like my body went through the counter and then it would snap back. Or I'd be in the car and I'd just be sitting there. We'd be stopped. And it was like my body went forward out of the car and snapped back. And I'd just be this moment. I'm like, anybody else feel that? No. And of course, everyone was like, nope, and you feel nuts because you're having these experiences. They're short bursts, but they're happening. And then of course the ear ringing, and people, that's one of the most common that people have, is like the intense ringing, long tones, even to the point of like going, it's like everything goes, it's like rings really hard and then things go quiet and then it all comes back on. And these were things where until I figured it out, till I found out that it was common. And it really was thanks to Dolores Cannon's work. Dolores Cannon, if you don't know who she is a pioneer in somnambulistic trance. She has her own method of trance. She's passed over back in 2015, but she wrote over 19 books about not only past life experiences, but about ascension, about the new earth, about the shift. And she had thousands and thousands of clients. And these are people all over the world who were not communicating with each other. There was no like secret meeting, like, okay, we're going to talk about this. He started seeing patterns and people were talking about this shift coming, and they were letting her know that these symptoms are going to happen and that they're normal and it's part of this shift and to be expected. And that, it's a long process. So for those of us who might be understanding it or aware of it now, know that you've been in this process for a while. It may have been more subtle, or you may have written it off as something else, which, there's a lot of cofactors, right? I mean, everybody's different. Everybody's responding differently. So even if you're like, well, I'm not having vertigo, or I'm not coming out of my body and snapping back in, that's okay. That doesn't invalidate your own experience. Everyone's going to have a different experience with this.
It could be that you want to just sleep all day, all night.
Totally.
Right.
And I mean, like at the drop of a hat, you want to go to sleep.
Yeah.
And I think in my case, I asked for more because I wanted to like ride the roller coaster. I think that on a soul level, I was like, just like amp me, like give me some more.
Yeah. And again, like it is different for everybody. And Dolores Cannon has a YouTube channel, so you can go and subscribe and like watch all the videos and read the books and all the things that she has, even though she's passed over. So I think that that's like another great resource that you can go and check out. Love Dolores. You were the first person that told me about her. And then I started watching her, so like, this feels so resonant. This makes sense. Right. So she's a great resource.
She's fantastic. And actually, by the way, just to like tie it together, at the time that I was having some of the most intense ascension symptoms in 2018, that's when I was actually visited in spirit by Dolores. So I'm, as a medium, that happens sometimes, but that was kind of like her nudge to me to, hey, pay attention and get ready, because this is a big part of what I talk about and what I try to help people understand, because I think we are so lucky to be here during this, even though we might not think we're so lucky right now, given the state of things and how the movie looks, that's playing in the world. in reality, we are incredibly lucky to be part of something that's never occurred in the universe before, an entire planet shifting with people on it.
Yeah, it's very special. And another great resource, I mean, go and check out Teresa's karma cards at Blythe Starlight. She's tagged in the title here, and all of her details are always below, because she does a great job of talking about all this and tying astrology, etc. And Blossom Goodchild, like they're always talking about in her channelings, like, we came here for this, you volunteered for this, you hold a lot of light, right? So if you need any loving reminders, you know, between us and Dolores and Blossom, you've got some great reminders here. We're all here.
Absolutely.
Right. So okay, so let's talk a little bit about the signs of like these shifts in frequencies and some of the behaviors, some of the signs that, like, as you're going through this ascension, you're experiencing more of this like higher vibration, higher frequency timeline. And then what does it look like when we drop back down?
So
getting a little choked up today.
I know.
Throat chakras.
Got to keep it clear. Okay. So the question was around, what does it look like when we go up, and what does it look like when we come down? Well, one of the reasons we're not seeing what we're waiting for, I should say, because one of the questions I get asked a lot is, when is this going to happen? And man, what I love to tell you, the date and time, I want to know when it's going to happen. All I can tell you is we're in the event zone. So, or I sometimes call it the corridor. We're literally primed for this. It could be any minute, it could be a couple of years, but we're here. And one of the things we're waiting for, and I don't know if this is quite answering your question, but it's just what's coming to mind, is we're waiting for enough people to hold a steady frequency. Mm-hmm. So again, I was saying to Amber that it kind of looks like when you're watching music go through, what do they call those? An equalizer, and you see the little bars go up and down. It's like we're waiting for enough people to hold the bar at the same level. Right now, each one of us has spikes where we are 5D. You are definitely going to 5D, and then you're coming down to 3D, and you're hanging out 4D mostly. 4D is the bridge between the two. So 4D is not a physical place, which is why when they talk about new Earth, they talk about 5D Earth. But we're in 4D. So it's like that gets confusing for people. We're in a bridge. We're literally in this corridor, a passageway. It's not here, it's not there, it's in between. So it makes sense why people can go up in frequency and have these amazing, like you can feel so connected. One, everything's working out, it's all good. And then you can drop down into fear and terror and like, oh my God, this is the worst thing. Yeah. What we're waiting for to see this convergence point is enough of us maintaining a certain frequency. I don't think we even have to be at the highest. We just have to be higher than the levels of fear. Right. Which is one of the reasons Amber and I felt compelled to do a podcast like this, because we wanted to show you there is a fear structure or a matrix, like a fear matrix, and certain things are put in place to keep you there. But as you eliminate these things, you start to hold a higher note, a higher frequency. And what we're waiting for is that sort of like convergence of enough people rising above what they think is reality and holding a note of something else, of we're okay, we are sovereign beings, we make the reality we live in, so we're choosing this consistently and consciously. And as we do that, it's like this moment accelerates. Is that answering the question, or did you? I think that answers the question. I think the other thing is like, what are some of like, how does someone behave or think when they're in a more of a 5D frequency versus a 3D? Like we talked, like fear is 3D, but like, what are some other thoughts or behaviors, or what kind of energy are we in when we're more in a 5D state? So here's interesting things. When you're more in a 5D state, your ego is offline. Ego really lives in 3D. So what happens is, let's say you're putting out a video and someone makes a nasty comment. If you were in 3D, you'd be so triggered, be like, how dare you? And you might want to respond back and defend yourself and be like, oh my gosh. But in 5D, you're like, that really triggered you. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're neutral. Like, and not in like a place where you're in denial that that's happening. You're neutral to it. So you're not as reactive. You're very, you have a natural detachment. You're calm. Also, when you can tell when you're in your 5D self, you already are releasing judgment. Like, so then let's go back to the scenario where here's a person who attacks you. And then maybe in 3D, you go look up their profile and you make snap decisions about who this person is and how low frequency they are. That's ego, right? Again, that's where you know you're in 3D. But when you're in 5D, your whole thing is to be like, I remember when that would have upset me. You know, I don't hold judgment for you. It's like, I know you'll get here and I understand. And it actually, thank you for engaging with my content, because every time you do, you just help me. So all I have for you is appreciation, because your engagement helps my content. And this is a very specific example, but these are the mindset shifts that you're going to notice when you're in a higher frequency. When you're in your 5D self, you're very connected to oneness. Like, you just feel, you're getting feelings and vibrations like off of animals, off of plants, off of, you can tell if your food is vibrating high or not. You can tell if this tree is happy or not. Like, and another thing is that you desire, like, what feels good is like connection. Like, I want to be in nature. I want to be by the water. I want to go for a walk in the trees, more than I want to go spend some money on this thing to entertain myself for a short period of time, right? Like, we actually move out of materialism when we move up into 5D. And materialism is one of the things that was, you know, a lot of people think capitalism is the negative thing, when it's actually materialism, which is a byproduct of all that freedom, of the freedom to create, right? So in 3D, we get trapped in that materialism and it becomes about status and showing that status. In 5D, it really becomes about connecting, and you naturally let go. Letting go is okay. You don't see it as an end or as loss or lack. You see it as a rebalance, and you naturally don't want more than you need. You just, all you kind of want in 5D is for your needs to be met, and you start trusting my needs get met. And so the things are always showing up just in time, just when you need it. It's like you're trying to manifest the balance, versus in 3D, when you're trying to manifest, you'd be focused on accumulation. Like, how much of this can I get? When in 5D, you're like, all is well, my needs are met. And then you experience that. So it's very different mindsets that kick in.
And a couple other examples I can share from more of a 3D, right, is like negative self-talk, people pleasing, perfection, needing to prove, needing validation, emotional eating, binge eating, right? Like negatively treating your body, like just the relationship between you and yourself is very disconnected, right? And then it's the judgment toward others, projecting on others, blaming others, conflict, arguing, like, and we're human. We've all come here to have these dualistic experiences. But it's very easy, like you said, to notice when you're having a 5D day experience and you're having a 3D day experience, and try not to judge if you drop back down, because there's lessons in the 3D, and we're here to have that experience too.
And here's how you know you're starting to maintain higher 5D. It's not the fact that you have a 3D experience. It's how fast you bounce back. It's how fast you can pull yourself out of it and be like, you know what? I could go into this lack spiral that's very familiar, but I feel like I'm just going to trust the universe. I feel like this is going to work out. And then it does. Then it does. And you start to see that. And one of the things that happens in 5D is this, having your own back really kicks in, because you're recognizing your sovereignty. You don't feel like a victim at all. You feel like a creator in your 5D self. In the 3D self, it's easy to get into that victimhood mentality. Doesn't happen in 5D, because what's attacking you? Nothing. If it's all you, then you have the power. You have the power to stop attacking, right? You have the power to neutralize or to go back into that oneness. And so I noticed that 5D also, there's a lot of inner child connection. Like, you just are so connected to that inner child self. And that inner child is transitioning from the wounded child, which is an archetype that you find in the 3D, into the magical child, which is the archetype of the 5D.
I feel like that would be a great topic for us to talk about sometime, is the inner child tied to Ascension. I just feel like that would be great. If you guys would like to see that, please let us know in the comments. I know we had we have 4 people watching live, which is so awesome. And Queen, I don't want to say it wrong, but Queen Boudica Radiant said that is true to one of our things we were talking about here. So thank you for your engagement. We appreciate you engaging with us. And like I said, any topics or questions, please leave them there. And if you're watching the replay, same with leaving them in the comments. But I feel like the inner child and ascension conversation would be just so cool, because I feel like the inner child is just such a big piece of all of this. So so how can we support our body through this ascension? What are things we can do? And we can both share a little bit, but I'm curious, like your guidance and recommendations.
Well, I love to default to Amber on this, but I will tell you the 2 things that I definitely allow a lot when I know I'm going through some ascension symptoms. One is sleep, because that for me, I've actually had my own QHHT session, and my higher self came through and said, when you can't process things consciously, when it's too much, we put you to sleep. Which was shocking to hear at first, but now I just trust it. So when I get really tired, and I have the opportunity to lay down, I don't fight it. I used to fight it. I'm kind of a go person.
Yeah.
Now I stop fighting that, and I go, nope, this means I'm getting some upgrades and I need to do this.
Yeah.
The other thing is I really try to remember the water and putting like electrolytes in the water, because we go through a ton of water as we upgrade our system.
Yes, I love that. And I think sleep is like, honestly, like, well, number one, honor your body. If you're getting the nudge to sleep, rest, take the nap, and you can do. If you're getting the nudge, I need to go lay in the grass, I need to put my feet in the grass, I need to lay in the grass, I need to earth, put my feet in the water, whatever that is, do it. To me, minerals are a huge part of supporting your body through this ascension. Whether you can get liquid minerals and put, 5 to 20 drops in your water, just do a little bit of water because it tastes horrible and you're just going to want to swig it back really fast, to be honest, right?
Yeah.
Or you can put electrolytes in your water and get like a really good clean brand, and they are naturally sweetened and things like that. You could also put a pinch of pink or gray sea salt with a squeeze of lemon in, and that would do the trick. And add the salts into your bath, the Epsom salts, the pink and gray sea salts, because we need all these minerals. I love magnesium as well, because magnesium not only is it great for ascension, but it's great for relaxing the mind, the muscles in the body, sleep. It helps with sleep. So you could take that before bed. Of course, with any kind of supplement recommendation, just make sure it's safe for you to take it if you're taking other things or there's no imbalance. Disclaimer, just have to make sure. But minerals are big. Fruit. So fruit contains sacred geometry that is assisting us with this ascension. So not that you have to force yourself to eat fruit. Obviously, if your body's like, heck no, I don't want it, honor your body. But I have been eating like cherries and berries and bananas and things, my body's just give me all the fruit.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that we're nourishing our bodies in a way that feels good for us. But I think a lot of like fruits and vegetables and good fats with the proteins that feel good is important. I think it's important to address self-sabotage. So if you're struggling with emotional eating, binge eating, you have any kind of an addiction or you're in this fight with your body, are you willing to start taking steps to addressing it and working on that? Because as long as we're in that, your ascension symptoms will probably be even more heightened. And then you're continuing to drop into those lower vibrations, which could be just amplifying your ascension symptoms even more and draining you even more. So to me, and then with hydration, try to use filtered water, whether you get like a Santivia or a Berkey, or you have a filtration system in your house. You want to try and make sure that water is as pure as possible. I like to tap. We have the big Santivia tower, and I like tap it and like affirm like I'm tapping love and joy into it, right, to raise the vibration of it as well. So you can do things like that. I think self-care is the last suggestion. Meditation or breath work, tapping, journaling, inner child healing, which maybe we can talk about when we do the inner child session chat. I actually did an inner child session in my membership last week. So you go to amberproof.ca, you can click that and access that. But those kinds of self-care, a nice bath, using essential oils, really gentle stuff, getting into nature.
And I would add to it environmental hygiene. So what I mean by that is using things like sage to clear your space regularly, because your energy might be top notch, but as every time you go out in the world, and especially if you're an empathic person or very sensitive person, you're collecting energy and bringing it back with you unconsciously. So what I found is that when I get a little lazy with my own like saging or smudging, and I'm not saying daily, I mean, I feel like unless you feel like there's a heavy energy, I do it when I clean, especially right before you vacuum, because one of the things that sage does is it does purify your air, and it will attach to molecules and like dust or toxins and things in the air, and it'll pull it down to the ground. So if you sage and then vacuum, you're literally helping get that out of your environment. You're clearing it, but you're going to notice a significant change in your own frequency. Sometimes all you need to do is just adjust the environment that you're in, and then everything seems to feel like it's flowing again.
Love that. I agree totally. And I know we got another comment here from Queen. I hope I say your name right, but she says, I also play water sounds or good audio stories when I can't fall asleep in yoga and meditation in the morning. I love this, right? So why don't we go into some card questions? So some questions for the cards for the universal guidance. So the first question is, will the masses be educated about Ascension at some point? Right? Because some of us know about it, but will it be something that is taught because it's literally what's happening, right?
Yeah. So I actually was saying to Amber, I don't need a card for this one because my team was like right there with it. And one of the things they said is that when we go through this event, whether it's a solar flash or there's some kind of shift that happens, you will immediately know what is true and what is false. You won't need that validation that we need in 3D. Why? Because in the 3D energies, it's all meshed together. You've got the truth with illusion over it. When this event happens, everything false is gone. It's gone, including the veil of forgetting and the veil of confusion. They are no longer necessary. So they were a necessary part of the 3D, because the 3D, its purpose is to help you authentically choose your polarity, whether it's positively polarizing or negative. The universe doesn't care, because eventually you end up back home with God anyway. So it's all good to the universe. But in 3D, in order to choose your progressive soul growth path, you're either choosing a positive polarity, which would be the service to others path, or a negative polarity, which is service to self. And the basic difference here is that either you believe in oneness and you see, like I see Amber as me, I see you as me, we see each other as one. That's service to others. So there's oneness, and what's good for you is good for me. And we work to that benefit. In the service to self is this complete belief in separation. I am separate. I am different. You are down there. I'm up here. And that's a different path, right? So 3D has a purpose that it serves. And the illusion is there so that you cannot cheat. You have to choose authentically from where you're at. Right. When we go through this event, that veil is gone. The illusion is gone. The things that would create a sense of separation or that are false are gone. So what I'm trying to say is you're going to know the truth. You won't need to have somebody outside of you as an authority validate, okay, here's what really happened. You will know in your gut, just like you know you're standing on the ground right now. You're going to know in your gut what is the truth and what occurred. All of that information lives inside of you. Right. You have access to it now. It's just we have to, and part of this time period as we're moving up the ladder from 3 to 5 is to go into the internal wisdom. It's to go inside and feel it. Because sometimes what's happened, my team said to me, they're like, look, it's going to get harder before it gets better. And how it gets harder is the outside world is going to start. It's like the people you thought were telling the truth, they're corrupted, or the things that you thought were happening, it's revealed it's not. And so you go, oh my gosh, now I can't figure out what outside of me is true or false. That's by design. It drives you inward into yourself so that you will touch base with the wisdom you hold already. Yeah. But once we go through that ascension point, you're there, and and there isn't any questioning of your own knowledge. You've got it.
Right. And I feel like you just answered the next question, which is what happens when we reach critical mass in ascension. And I feel like this is it, right? The internal knowing, no more illusion, the oneness, the unity, humanity gets to evolve into a peaceful planet, right? And evolve to the next phase of enlightenment and growth.
And we have assistance on the other side. There is assistance around us now, whether you believe in, extraterrestrials or angels or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really matter. The point is we have assistance. They're going to be there. Our need for disclosure, and that's something I hear a lot of people talk about in the communities that I follow, is they're like, will we ever get full disclosure? And that is something that we worry about in the 3D, because we're worried that we're always going to be under this illusion, but we need to start thinking about a life without the illusion and it being very obvious. And it's like, will we need that level of reassurance that we feel like we need now when we get there? And I'm pretty sure we won't need it.
No, I agree with you. So let's ask this question to the cards. Where are we at reaching critical mass with the Ascension?
All right, let's see what they tell us.
And if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments if you're live. And of course, if you're watching the replay, drop questions anyway, and we can do another chat on it. I love this. This is so fun. This Ascension fun chat. I feel like there's so many episodes we could just make on this topic.
Yeah, I mean, this is my favorite thing to talk about. And it's more than a rabbit hole. It's like a wormhole because there's so many layers to it. And I do not even pretend to have the foremost knowledge about Ascension. My perspective when I come to it is like, I don't know what I don't know. And I'm excited to be shown more. I'm more interested in, like, I want to discover more because there's so much to this topic. But what's really interesting is when you said, where are we at with critical mass? And I feel like this is it's interesting because we've got the Justice card right here, which is it's a card about knowledge, but it's also about balance. And you see the scales are actually quite balanced in this card. We are at a critical point in this. There is, what it's letting us know is we're at this critical point of knowledge coming forward. And I feel like that there's more than 50%, even though the scales look even here. I feel like there's more than 50%, but it is what you put out is what you get back. And I'm trying to ask the team, okay, what do you mean by that? What do we need to, and okay, so they're bringing me back to the point I already made about it's us holding the frequency. So one person doing it is doing a lot. And every time, so if Amber and I, for example, were to take a moment with the people who are here, and we were all just to assert that we're on the highest timeline and hold that feeling, we would be doing the work of, gosh, what is it? It compounds like by, I feel like 7 or something like that. So it would be like, they say when you get numbers of people together, it actually quadruples or, quintuples, it expands. And so one of the things that I've heard, and through, I think, the law of one, is whenever 3 people come together and hold an intensity or intention, then it has this exponential effect.
Right.
And so even us getting together in groups of 3 who are willing to hold the same intention for a moment that we're on the highest timeline and this is happening would hold us there for a significant amount of time. Now imagine if we got a group of 100 people holding this intention. We quantum leap this. And so they're saying what you put out is what you get back. So every time you, even on an individual level, hold that intention, you're holding it to the power of 2. You've already increased it.
Yeah.
Then when you hold it with others, you increase it exponentially and it keeps going. So the more we do that, the more we're kind of, again, it's like that equalizer, and we're looking to hold a note. We're sustaining something. The more we sustain it, the faster this goes. And again, I think that we're doing this. I do think that people are doing this. I know that they're intending it, at least for themselves, but it's more like practice they're saying practice holding the note. That's what they're going to call it. Hold the note, right?
And as you say that, we're at 4 watching and 44 minutes stream. So 444. That's so
Love
cool. I love
I
that.
love
Yes,
that.
practice. So, I mean, you could just kind of, how do we hold the note? How do we hold the frequency? I guess it's practice. Is there any other guidance on that?
Yeah, I'm actually getting, you can do it with breath. So the breath
Mm.
is so powerful, right? Your breath work, but it's like on the exhale specifically, and this is actually has a kind of a double prong effect. So try to extend your exhale for as long as you can. And you do that by sort of making a tiny pinhole, and it's like you're
Mm.
blowing through a straw or a
Mhm.
birthday candle, blowing that out. But it has a 2-for-1 impact. It actually strengthens and calms your vagus nerve, which is the nerve that's like the most connected to your heart. And your heart literally holds the inner temple of your
Mm.
spirit. It's the doorway that your spirit comes through. So it's like as you breathe this way, you're strengthening and calming your heart, but you're also going to hold, like, as long as I can hold this breath, I hold the intention that we are at the highest timeline for the good of all humanity, and it's happening now, it's happening now, it's happening now. And every time you breathe out, just you're holding that intention.
Mhm.
And even just doing that for a minute, I mean, man, you've done a lot of work there
Yeah,
for 1 minute.
that's incredible. I love that practice. It reminds me of a technique I was taught called Helio Soul, where you breathe in light into all the 7 chakras and you breathe out in that same technique, and you express gratitude and affirm what you want. So this sounds very similar to that, and I love it. And it's just these little simple practices that can assist us, right? And the other way that we can help get more people is for you to share this with everyone that you know that you think would love it, because then it's just more of us coming together to hold this light together in these chats, right? So
Yeah, and I would love that. I would love for people to watch, but I want to empower us all that the power of one. I mean, it's interesting. We're all one and we experience ourselves as one. All it takes is one.
right.
All it
Yeah.
takes is one. So even though we'd love for you to spread this message far and wide, more than that, it's like, if you're hearing this, take a moment and do it, because you're that powerful. And your intention, it shifts the timeline, it shifts us forward. And if we all take that moment and do it, and then the more consistently we do it, the faster this thing goes.
Yes. Which I'm happy if it speeds up more.
Yeah, me too. Let's get going.
Yeah. Well, I think this was another great episode. Is there anything else you want to share before we wrap up for today?
If you want to hang out with me and see more of what I'm doing, check out the Blythe Starlight channel on YouTube. I've got karma cards. We're going to do an event reading for Canada and that really interesting bill that they just passed. We're going to do a reading on that this week.
Yes.
But also karma cards, where I'm getting messages from my team and I'm sharing it with you with the guidance for the week ahead. And if you want to do a reading with me or see what else I do, you can go to blythestarlight.com.
Thank you so much.
How about
for
you,
sharing
Amber?
that. Yes. If you're wanting to work on healing your relationship with food and overcoming the self-sabotage, you're wanting to balance your hormones and gut, and wanting more guidance to get grounded and prioritize yourself, maybe overcome some of that people pleasing and perfectionism that's pulling you back into those 3D timelines, you can click below and go to amberapproved.ca. You can book a 30-minute body freedom call. You can take the free emotional eating quiz if you're wondering if you're struggling. And there's all kinds of other things like my podcasts and programs if you want to check those out. And that's what we have to share today. So a really good way to bring more people to your lives is through other good podcasts. Totally. Yeah, there's a lot of great resources out there. So feel free to share your favorites in the chat as we're going along. So this wraps up our episode today. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you feel called, but take a moment and do this exercise that Therese was sharing earlier. It's absolutely about us knowing how powerful we are to help bring in this ascension. So enjoy the rest of your day, and we will see you again soon. Take care.